Ladies and gentlemen, here is Led Zeppelin.
Messrs. Bonham, Jones, Page, and Plant. Led Zeppelin.
Ladies and gentlemen, the American return of Led Zeppelin.
Well, here we go. Episode 28 of the Zepfan All Things Led Zeppelin podcast. My name is Mark McFall. I will be your host for the next hour. Thank you for joining me. We have an incredible guest today, Michael DeBars. Michael is here today to talk about his wonderful career, talk about signing with Swan Song and all the cool stuff that happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. So that's going to be an amazing interview. Please stay tuned for that. If you want to reach out to me for anything, contact@zepfan.com. I'm always looking for Led Zeppelin collectible items or 8mm films, slides, negatives, any collectibles you may have. Huge fan of the videos, as you may know. So if you have anything of Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, Page and Plant, or Led Zeppelin, again, contact@zepfan.com. Let me know. If you are looking for any Zepfan merchandise, we have it at the Etsy store. Search Zepfan store. See a wide variety of Led Zeppelin t-shirts and Zepfan t-shirts. I think we have some posters on there as well. I believe we're on eBay, so search Zepfan store on eBay. If you want to watch some cool videos, again, my YouTube channel is Mark Zepp. We have well over 600 videos on there, so please check that out. For the collectors in you, if you want to check out the Led Zeppelin memorabilia from all eras, all releases, that would be zepfan.com. For those of you who've asked about donating to the Zepfan podcast, in the description of this podcast, there should be a link that allows you to provide any type of donation. That's purely up to you. Again, I can't thank you enough for all the support, all the feedback. I think I covered all areas that I needed to in a timely fashion. So let's get started. Our guest today is a singer with record deals spanning the course of 5 decades and an actor in over 100 TV and movie appearances. In the 1970s, his band was signed to the Led Zeppelin record label Swan Song. In the 1980s, he found himself in front of 2 billion people playing at Live Aid, and then pivoting his career into acting and appearing in nearly every popular TV show from that era, including MacGyver, Seinfeld, Melrose Place, and Roseanne. In 2020, he has a documentary titled Who Do You Want Me to Be? And coming up in October 2024, he will be releasing a 1970s cover band, It's Only Rock and Roll. Chances are you know him and you don't know it. Please welcome the one, the only, Michael DeBars. Michael, what's going on?
I'm exhausted.
Oh my gosh. Reading this about you, the bio, because of course I know you from the Led Zeppelin, and I'll be quite honest with you. I got into Led Zeppelin and the music in the 80s, so I knew you from TV. You were one of those actors that was on every single show because, in the 80s, we had 3 networks. We watched every show. And then you just had those iconic parts. You're either the bad guy, and especially MacGyver, of course. I knew you from that. So really cool. So what are you doing these days? You acting? Are you a musician? Where are we at now?
I'm all of those things all the time, and I can juggle too.
Well, that's the kicker. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I'm a good juggler. Showbiz is a juggle. And a jungle too. Right. But, listen, I do my radio show for little Stephen Van Zandt. It's 20 years today that he started it on Sirius XM. I've been doing that every day for 10 years. I've written many, many songs. And I go out there and do, kill people on telly every now and then, but Cheekbone Assassin is the title of my autobiography. But yeah, actually, my documentary is pretty cool. Who Do You Want Me to Be? Regarding Zeppelin, of course, and many others, and so it's a full diary journal for me on a daily basis.
Well, how does that feel when you have a documentary on yourself? I mean, that must have to be a sense of accomplishment in your life to say, well, here's a documentary about me, but I'm not done yet, but here's where it's at now.
Well, it really is, and it was done by a writer. We did it. I was doing some TV show, and he was a writer on that series I was doing. And he said, well, let's talk about this because you've got so much time when you're on those sets, Right. So we're talking about Zeppelin and rock and roll and me and that, and, Sidney Poitier, To Sell With Love, all of the stuff that I've done for decades and centuries, it feels like. He thought, well, wow, let's do a documentary about it. He was a young filmmaker. And we did for 7 years. It took to create that. And I never looked at a frame of it. I trusted him implicitly, which is very cool because you don't want to get on the guy's back and go, no. It's all about my cheekbones. Get the lighting. I can't, it's egoic madness, But he put it all in there, and I didn't look at it. And then 7 years later, he said, "You want to come and have a look at it?" And I just wept for 2 hours, and it was, only an hour and a half long. So, but it was a beautiful thing, and it's lovely to have that, from my family and all of that. It's good to have and to see it and to be able to, not get egoistic about it, but just realize that, one worked really hard, and it was up and down, as a drug addict for years, as you're probably aware. And I've been sober for 43 years of drugs and alcohol. Thank you. So it's a hop, skip, and a jump, man. And knowing Led Zeppelin and hanging out with Led Zeppelin is a big chapter in that book.
Right. Well, and it's another piece of the legacy, right? Having the documentary. Well, let's talk a little bit about the early days, the 70s. Your first band, Silverhead, was formed in 1972. You had 2 albums, 2 tours. You disbanded with Silverhead. You moved to LA, fell in love, formed Detective. What caused the disbanding of Silverhead, and what prompted you to say, "Hey, I'm going to go to LA"?
Well, coming to Los Angeles, coming to the United States, I realized that this is where I should be. London was amazing. You can imagine the early 60s, and I was in that movie, To Sell With Love, and I could go to any club. I was a teenager, and, and the Yardbirds and Jimmy, Jimmy was on every record. You could possibly. Jimmy Page obviously played, solos and produced and so on and so forth. So Silverhead, I really wanted to do it because after To Sell With Love, I thought, this is too, it's getting up too early to do these movies, So I started to sing, and Silverhead happened, and it was a very wonderful sort of androgynous, cocaine-ridden era. Incredible, 1972. And I've done this album about music from that era, which is really cool. It's called It's Only Rock and Roll, and it's all those songs from that era. And I really wanted to get into that. Of course, I wanted to go to the United States. I was in love with Elvis since I was 8 years old, for God's sake. So, I came here 72, met Miss Pamela, played the Whiskey A Go-Go, and Silverhead's records didn't sell particularly well. And I thought, I'm going to stay here. And the other lads were true London kids. We were only 20, 19, 20. Yeah, they said, I'm going to stay in London, Michael, and you can go wherever the fuck you want. I said, okay. And I hung out with Miss Power and stayed in Los Angeles. And here I am.
Did you know Jimmy Page in the early years during the sessions before Led Zeppelin, or when did your relationship?
I'd seen it play 1,000 times because the Yardbirds,
right?
And it was hype, or it was, my God, that solo and the thing, But he's such an amazing person because the most amazing thing about him is he doesn't see himself like others see him. Fans or anyone, musicologists, it doesn't matter. He doesn't, go into this thank you and that sort of brazen sort of charm that most instrumentalists have. He's just into it because of the music. Yeah. That's why Zeppelin became, Beatles Stone Zeppelin. I mean, it's pretty simple where he was at, but he was never really sort of shy or bullyingly egoic. He was just wanted to play music, beautiful blues music. And then, of course, the right people came into his life after having played with everyone. He played with every single, and that's how he met John Paul Jones, was also the same with his extraordinary instrumentalism and bass playing and arrangements, especially John Paul Jones. So that it grew from that family of music that was done in the late 60s, birthed Jimmy Page, taking him from just pure the blues, Clapton, Beck, world and got into a bigger world,
right? A
magical world, because whatever he was, he was interested in magic with a K. You know, he was right from the beginning, as I was. You know, I was fascinated by Aleister Crowley. Anybody in that early 70s was really into the occult as well as Muddy Waters. You know, I mean, Aleister Crowley was, you know, Lightning Hopkins to us. It was the same kind of bluesy, soulful thing.
Right.
And that's what Zeppelin became. This curious cocktail, rocktail, if you will, of the blues and magic.
Well, he definitely had a vision of what he wanted the band to be. And I think with Peter Grant really helped him accomplish that.
No question about it. I mean, Peter Grant really helped me too. I mean, Peter Grant was an amazing man. I mean, there's a story there that has never been told, and it's absolutely fascinating about how close British criminals were to the rock and roll business. We're talking about management. I'm not going to mention any names because a lot of your listeners probably understand.
Right. We've heard it, yeah.
Right. So that was going on, you know, and Peter Grant, shall we say, was somewhat involved in that. But the truth about him was he was the kindest, sweetest giant I ever met, certainly to me, you know, because I understood what time it was.
Right.
And what they wanted to do and what I wanted to do was just play magical music and see people with a smile on their face, you know, or tears in their eyes.
When you signed to Swan Song, was he supposed to manage you? Was that ever part of it? Or he's just was the head of Swan Song and you had your own manager?
Well, we did have our own peeps, yeah, because you know, it was a very complicated vibe because we were really wanted by a lot of labels at that time.
Not a bad thing to be.
Yeah, it was good. But Peter was absolutely about those four fellas, you know, especially Jimmy, you know, because suddenly out of nowhere, as you know, Robert was 19, 20 years old, you know, and they were the biggest band in the world immediately. And therefore had all of this stuff to do. The label, Swan Song, came later, you know, Maggie Bell, Pretty Things, and so on. All of whom and Bad Company, all of, you know, he loved Paul Rodgers, who doesn't? And but none of those bands had hits.
Yep.
You know, Swan Song was actually, we shouldn't have signed with Swan Song in many ways. I would have rather been Jimmy's friend and Peter's friend than to be into the politics of music.
The business side of it.
The business side of it, you know, and plus I was out of my mind on narcotics throughout the event, and which was, I wasn't quite like completely out of it at that point. I was moving into that area of just being absolutely incapable of doing what I should be doing. So the records I thought were really good, you know. But one thing or another, when you go onto a label that is owned by musicians like Swan Song was, it's different.
Yeah.
They're looking after the Jimmy and Robert, you know, and Bonzo and John Paul Jones. They're not working for me. You know, we were just on that label. And that's another mistake we made. Right. You know, which was because every label wanted us. It was a really cool band. But we got lost.
Well, and of course, there's some prestige going, oh, I'm signed to Led Zeppelin label, and being young, you don't know what the management's going to be on the other side of it, too. I could definitely see the vision, like this would be the best label to be on.
That's exactly right. And that was more about celebrityism than it was about, you know, the business.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea that I was in a business.
Right.
I thought I was in a magician in tight trousers. You know, you know what I mean? I mean, I didn't think of it that way. I thought of in terms of rock and roll.
When it came to signing with Swan Song, it sounds like a lot of bands or a lot of management or a lot of record labels were after you. Did you find out what those offers are? Did you, you know, find out anything else? Or was it more of, hey, we have this record deal with Swan Song? How did that come about? I mean, did you talk to Jimmy going, I have this new band, Detective? And how did you get signed?
Well, Jimmy came to LA and we were playing and we were rehearsing and he said, you know, I'll come down, and he came down and he said, I'll sign you a Swan Song. It was pretty simple.
Just like that.
and so that's how it happened. But then when he went off, you know, you're going to really, your listeners and everyone really must understand that Led Zeppelin was a form of weather. It was summer, winter, Led Zeppelin, you know, and so he had no time to put up an umbrella when it was raining for me. You know, it was Zeppelin. I mean, it was impossible to even understand how quickly that happened. And therefore, we were left to our own devices, which was a huge error.
Yeah.
Because our own devices were vice.
Not the best judgment sometimes. What was the, if you don't mind me asking, what was the signing? I mean, was it a big signing? Was it, I mean, especially for some young kids, I'm sure it's pretty amazing, but
several $1 million.
Really? Yeah. And being that young, getting that kind of money, being in LA, I could imagine is set you loose.
Yes, me and Miss Pamela had a good time.
I could only imagine what LA would be in the 70s, obviously with no phones or any of that stuff. And being someone of your stature, you mentioned having, being into drugs and alcohol. Was it just nonstop and it just spun you out of control? And then at some point you felt you had to get help?
Yes, exactly. I mean, that happens to everyone who wants to get sober, but you don't want to get sober. You know, what you do is, what happened to me anyway, I can't talk to anybody else, but the reliance upon people that loved me, and cared for me, which were few and far between by the time I got into that real addiction, because then all morality goes out of the window when you're obsessed on a particular thing. As you know, Obsession, the song I wrote, which was #1 all over the world, was written because I understood exactly what obsession was, which is so incredible when you think about it. That was the biggest song that I ever wrote, and and still is in many ways. People still do it. The point being is this: you're so out of it that you don't know who you are, what's happening. Danny Goldberg, you might have heard about, the great writer, and he was Peter Grant's right-hand man at Swan Song. He's a sober guy, a spiritualist, a wonderful man. We were having dinner with Zeppelin, which was like going to a zoo filled with animals in leather, and so we were having, and I was out of my mind, drunk and stoned, and Danny had had enough of that with me, and he swept the table. This is Zeppelin, and he swept the table off, and he said, "Get the fuck into the car, and we're going to take you home," and he did. His mate, Paul Fishkin, you might have heard of him, great guy, wonderful manager of various ex-TV negs, very cool guy, had just gotten off heroin and coke, right? And so Danny, introduced me to Paul, and I went to a meeting, and I haven't done any drugs since.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Or had a drink or any alcohol in 43 years. So obviously it was a wake up. And I never went to sleep again.
In the 70s, I mean, I would imagine there wasn't a lot of intervention, and I'm sure a lot of people were experiencing what you were, and especially for Zeppelin fans, we all know a lot of the stories as well, or what we've read. So it's good that Danny took you under his wing and got you help. I had Danny on the show a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, actually. Great guy. His memory is just amazing. It blows me away. He's like, February 1972.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, better than me with the Zeppelin stuff. So he's an amazing guy.
Oh, he's my dearest friend. He's been a friend of me and my family for decades. The guy is absolutely brilliant. The president of 3 labels. I mean, he's an extraordinary man, an incredible writer, and still in my life very much.
Yeah, good. I want to talk a little bit about, after you signed with Led Zeppelin, after you signed on the Swan Song label, one of the things I noticed when I was doing the research, what I thought was very interesting, was that you released 2 LPs. You have the self-titled LP, Detective, and then you have It Takes One to Know. But you did them both in 1977, right? So did you record these back to back? Was that the idea of going in the studio to get 2 albums, or what was
No. The first record took us 2 years.
Okay.
So, I mean, literally, because we used to go to the record plant and we didn't play music. I mean, the record plant was hell.
Yeah.
A magical place filled with, delightful people with illegal substances, which is a great name for a band. Anyway.
Trademark.
Yeah. So there we were. By the time we'd finished the second one, we thought, well, maybe we were going on the road. And so we made the second one playing like that too. So there's so many songs,
Yeah.
There were so many good writers in that band. And it was a wonderful band. It really was. It was great. It was rocking, but it dissolved like all things do when you got narcotics around, and that's what killed it.
Well, you had an interesting thing, and I've always read this about bands, and I think you kind of confirmed it. Your first album, you could take a couple of years to do it, and then your second one, you're supposed to put it out right away, so you don't have much writing time to do it. Is that what you found with the second album?
Well, I wrote so many songs so quick, and also the lyricism of John Hyde, the drummer, was really beautiful, and we just wrote them real quick, because when you play that kind of music, it's all half-time,
right.
It's big and fat and thick and beautiful, and I just wrote a ton of stuff. I had enough of 26 albums.
So it just flows with you then.
More records, more songs. But I had just a galaxy of songs there. But there were certain internal problems with the fans, very young, and suddenly had all of this money, and it just doesn't work, man.
How much touring did you do back then?
How much what?
How much touring with the Detective?
Endless touring.
And were you headlining, or were you support acts?
Some theaters, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 theaters.
Cool.
We would open for big bands, whose names escape me, and because I could care less.
Because it's not about them; it's about you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're blow them off the stage.
If you musicians out there of any sex, and every sex, don't think about the headline. You are the headliner.
Right.
And if you don't get on stage and know that, don't get on stage.
So I'm assuming the time that you were in LA, you witnessed a lot of Led Zeppelin shows. Did you go to a lot, or did you?
Are you kidding? I was there. In LA, they did 6. Was it 7? Forum. I was there every night. Who slept?
Yeah.
Nobody slept.
Yeah.
I mean, it was shockingly fantastic to see them play.
Right.
For so long. I mean, at the end of the last few days, he literally, Jimmy, you put him on stage, literally put him on stage, and then he would
come to life.
He would just, that way he would stand with his shoulders back and that just free and easy, and play those notes so beautifully. Yeah. It looked like you could do it, you know?
Yeah.
And then you pick it up his guitar. Same thing when I worked with Steve Jones. When Steve Jones played guitar, I go, oh, good. Can I ever go nuts? Doesn't sound anything like Steve or Jimmy,
Right.
They know what they're doing. But yes, I saw them every night,
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I remember distinctly when Bonzo was doing a solo, and I'd nip back to the dressing room to take some vitamins.
Right.
And Robert came down the passageway off stage and going, down the thing. I went, oh my God. He's doing it in the hallway. It was so beautiful, and I thought, my God, this is a Viking rock and roll,
Right.
And then he'd go back and play for another 2 hours, So it was that was a hell of a week.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking, I know the LA shows so well, and you talking about it, just kind of like I could only imagine being in that atmosphere. And I feel like shows were a lot louder back then. I go to shows now. I don't think it's my old ears. I don't think they're as loud as they used to be. I think they're a lot louder back then. So is that true?
Yeah, because now it's all computerized, and it's louder here, it's softer there. It's completely, it was horrible. It's all horrible. I'd rather hear the cymbals fall over. I'd rather drop fucking guitar on the floor. I mean, that's true rock and rollness, the uniqueness of originality and staying in the moment, and not all of the brilliant sort of electrified stuff that absolutely ruins the music. And that is also happening in production.
Yeah.
Of rock and roll. You can't go in there, even doubling your voice to me is a mess.
I agree. Yeah.
The only person that ever did that well was John Lennon.
Yeah.
Was doubling his voice, and he knew exactly what it was. But my point is that I want to hear the cymbals fall over.
Right.
I want to see the drummer fall over. You know, I mean, what is rock and roll? What does that mean?
Right.
You know,
You want that raw sounding versus the you don't, when I go to a concert, I don't want the polished LP sound. I want to hear the raw sound. And I
yeah.
know with a lot of bands that I go to now, because I go to the older bands, but still, it just sounds too clean to me, in my opinion. It's just everything.
Well, they're not even playing. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of it is
Isn't that sad?
You know, I hate to break it, the news to you guys.
Yeah.
You know already full well that they're miming.
Right. Right. And that's
it's not even
it's just a money grab. Yeah.
They're all 70 years old and they weigh 200 pounds, and it's, you know, and they all wear bandanas because they've got no hair left, you know, which is a great title for something. But you know, I mean, and I'm not negating anybody's power. I think it's great, 70-year-old going out there and playing, you know.
Right,
I'm just trying to make the difference between what the 70s were and whatever year it is now. I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a different world. It's a different technology. You know, it's not in the moment. The thing of great rock and roll music, if you listen, and you do, I know your listeners and you yourself are listening to Zeppelin, you know, that music was created with tremendous, you know, work from the band. But when they played the song, it was free. It was a liberation. I saw them do this. Yeah. It was a liberating moment where they all really were so concentrated that the music is what we know it to be now. You know, it's just this incredible embracing of a magical situation with power and glory and bonzo and oh my God, in the Zeppelin, unbelievable at their peak, you know. And I had the opportunity to be able to see that through the, you know, the window while doing it. I mean, you know, it was fucking amazing.
Yeah, and you know, being a fan of Led Zeppelin and listening to all the live albums or live bootlegs that are out there, I mean, and that's when, especially in '69, they toured like motherfuckers. I mean, it's just like every night, Peter had them everywhere playing. But I mean, when you listen to him night to night doing the song, it's always just a little bit different. It's a little bit, whatever the groove is, and that's what I love about it. It's just they took it in any direction. It wasn't, you know, set, and I think that's what a lot of the live album is what kept Led Zeppelin fascination along during the 80s when there was no Led Zeppelin, before the box sets came out and they kind of made a revision kind of late 80s, like all
that's all different. Yeah. But no, I mean, it was like that. It was magical. They were, you know, they allowed each other to be so.
Yeah, they all had the space.
You know, it wasn't like here comes Jimmy solo.
Yeah.
He never thought like that.
Yeah.
And he would obviously the greatest rock and roll guitar player ever, but he didn't, you know, think that was why everybody came to see them.
Right.
Or more importantly, to listen to them. You know, they were units, and that's the only way a good band can work it out. It's like the Stones, but the Stones, to me, it's a different vibe. You know, you're really there for Keith's iconic personality, Mick Jagger's extraordinary sort of superstardom. You know, it's two different worlds, two different universes and choruses. You know, Zeppelin's one thing, Stones, two different things.
Well, you mentioned John Bonham a few times, of course. I've heard rumors that he was a special guest on one of your albums on Detective. Was he in any of this?
You know, to this day, I can't say anything to this day legally about anything. You know, I really can't. I did a duet with John Lee Hooker. You know, I can't talk about that.
Okay, very good. But so can you confirm they visited you in the studios? Jimmy, Robert coming by saying hi?
No idea.
Well, I think another great thing about the first album of Detective, it was recently released for the Record Store Day 2022. How did that come about?
You know, John, the drummer John Hyde's sister is a brilliant woman, and for some reason, you know, I say this with absolute astonishment, Jimmy gave us back the records.
Wow, did you ask, or did he just like out of
no?
You don't need this. Oh, okay, nice.
And I thought, well, that's nice. What am I going to do with them? I have no idea. And John Hyde's sister did know what to do and got a label and put it out, and it did, you know, better than the record did when it first came out.
Right.
And still, you know.
Yeah. Are you a vinyl person? Do you feel that vinyl's better than CDs and streaming, or is it just all media is good media?
Oh, it's vinyl.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you know. I mean, you can listen and enjoy music in any form, but there's a certain consciousness
A little bit of air.
that goes with the drop of a needle
Yeah.
in more ways than one.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that. So being able to put on an LP, look at that cover front and back, read the liner notes, read about, when it was printed, and everything was just, you knew everything, every nook and cranny of that LP.
Yeah, and you knew about them, and you were listening to them while looking at them, and looking at the what symbols they're using, and and all of the Zeppelin artwork I thought was really good. Really, it set an example for this mysticism, really, that was the music of that incredible band, and you want to hold it, you want to hold it in your hands, like you were 15. That's the way I feel about it. And I gently put the thing on and drop the needle, and it's ageless and timeless and beautiful. Rock and roll music, man.
Well, let's go into the 80s a little bit. So, as you mentioned earlier, you got clean, never went back, which is amazing. Congratulations. Well, I mean, the 80s music was a lot different than the 70s, that's for sure. In 82, you formed the band Checkered Past. You opened up for Duran Duran. What I'm most curious about, in 1985, you were frontman for the Power Station. Now, did you replace Robert Palmer? Am I understanding that?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. What happened there? Because I'm reading that you only had 10-day rehearsal. Was it just like, we need a frontman? What are you doing, Michael?
30 songs, yeah. And actually, it was 4 days. Yeah. And it did a little gig called Live Aid.
Yeah. And do you remember that? I mean, what was that playing?
Do I remember that?
Playing in front of that many
people. 2 million people remember that, But I hope that, the 80s, look, what was the title of my autobiography, my documentary?
Who do you want me to be?
Bingo.
Yeah. So I'm there.
I'm either Murdoch, trying to kill Richard Dean Anderson, or I'm a singer in silk.
Yeah.
Standing next to the cutest guy in the world, John Taylor, and Andy,
Yeah, and they were on their fame, right? I mean, opening up for Duran Duran in 1984, that they were on top of their.
And we opened for them.
Yeah.
Me and Joan St. Clem, and Nigel Harrison from Blondie too, and Tony Sales.
Yeah.
Who was with Bowie. And it was a great rocking band. The album, the live, unbelievable. And we opened for them. And when Robert Palmer realized what he'd let himself into, which was Durani's, and you say that the 80s was different, completely different from me, right. But that's okay, because I'm an actor and I can slip into any outfit, and or place, I can put myself in that place. And it was funny. It was hilarious to do Live Aid. It was the second gig, I'd had 3 or 4 days to learn 30 songs. The next night, we went to New Orleans, and John is over here, and Andy's here, and I'm in the middle. And I swear to God, I came out in the middle with the mic, and it was like the Red Sea parting. This dreadful alleyway was... right in the middle there, all the girls were on one side and John on the other side. I mean, excuse me, hello.
I'm the lead singer here.
I'm the singer. Please, you throw roses. And, I got a couple of shoes thrown at me, from the boyfriends. But but that was only for a few days, Because then once people had seen Live Aid, then they could see, okay, it's happening.
Right, yeah.
And then the next 6 months were glorious, it was just an unbelievable. Playing to 30, 40,000 young ladies.
I could imagine, yeah.
An interesting experience.
Yeah. Great for backstage too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Speaking of the 80s, you made this amazing pivot to acting.
Yeah.
I mean, was it a conscious decision or did it just fall in your lap?
Well, I mean, I'm a hard worker, and I wanted to, I was kind of just up to here with touring.
Right.
Because it is I don't care if you're in a suite the size of Paris, you're still going to get, it's still monotonous, and you're singing the same things. And what happened was I had got this white Rolls Royce, right? And I'm driving along and I look very mysterious in the backseat with shades. And I pulled into some restaurant, and a guy coming out of the restaurant was, his name is Michael. I will not give his full name, but he was a producer on the show MacGyver. And he said, and they just started, and they needed a bad guy.
Yeah.
And who's badder ass than in the back of a roller with shades? and he goes, would you come in and audition for this? And I said, what's this? And he said, well, it's a TV show, and, we'd love you to come. So I went down there in my fabulous car, which I don't have anymore. And I got the gig, and a week later I was in Vancouver trying to kill Richard Dean Anderson.
So with that, I mean, is like, I'm going to focus on acting, no more music.
Well, no, I never say no more, nothing.
It just went on to whatever it took you.
Yeah. I just walked around the corner and there would be whatever, it's been an amazing trip,
right?
To do that. And the DJ thing was something just came out of nowhere, I mean, why would that happen? But what did happen was it got rid of a lot of egoic behavior. Right. It's about me. I wrote this. I'm singing that. It really changed my life and saved my life in many ways, because now I'm bringing people, music that isn't mine.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, and I've always been a fan.
Just sharing the music.
Yeah, it's or I would go and see theater. I did a lot of theater as a kid.
Yeah, I read that.
And I had a lot of Shakespeare plays, and I did this nude musical, which is how it all started. Andrew Lloyd Webber of Jesus Christ Superstar fame came to see the dirtiest show in town, and it was in the West End of London. And it was I played a rock and roll star, and there was we were naked in the thing, and it was a lot of stuff going on there. And I sang this song, and he came backstage. This is Andrew Lloyd Webber came backstage and said, "Michael, I was wondering, I'm doing this sort of demos for this musical. It's called Jesus Christ Superstar, and I was thinking perhaps you'd like to do a demo for me." And I said, "Fuck yeah!"
Right. Sign me up.
I went and did it, and he said, "No." After I'd done it, he goes, "I know these chaps that manage Deep Purple." And I said, "Oh, really?" Because it was an amazing thing. He said, "I'm going to introduce you," and I got a band together with those people. Within 3 weeks, we were in the Marquee Club playing R&B, and I had eye makeup on, and the velvet trousers. Which is better than having no trousers in the West End, because we were just closing the thing. So it all worked, it all sort of went together like some mad.
So what you're saying is you never had a fear of being on stage. I guess if you're doing it naked, you could do it anyway.
I have no fear about that.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm really lucky.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned touring and then, going to hotels and having a suite. But I remember following Robert Plant for a couple weekends or a week, and just to, see all the shows. And after like the fourth or fifth hotel, you're going, what the fuck? This is just so confusing. Like, what room am I in? It's like the whole process. And it made me think, like, what is it really like for musicians to deal with this? I mean, the 2 hours is great while you're on the stage, but then it's that other 22 hours. What are you doing? So,
well, I do a lot of things. I mean, like, for instance, with the power station, I had a bodyguard, so I didn't do anything, And because it was really mad. I'm not saying that they're after me. I'm saying it was all about Duran.
Right.
I mean, I remember us walking into the thing and the hotel lobby, and there was glass doors, and they crashed. The kids just went crash. And so they had their own people look after them. I had this person. I didn't really need anybody to look after me, but it was underneath that magic of Duran, Lovely guys, really lovely guys. Not my kind of music at all, Right. But I didn't care about that. Robert Palmer I'd known for 10 years before, And I just thought he was the shit, you know. I mean, he was Marvin Gaye, baby.
Yeah.
You know, he was a great singer, and he didn't want to go through what I actually enjoyed, which was that chaos and that youthful excitement. And but so, you know, I mean, the thing is if you can adapt and adopt what is required. I remember one show right after Live Aid, we went to Miami, and there, you know, and Don Johnson is a dear old friend of mine, you know, and Andy and John were just Sonny fucking Crockett, you know, they were
in the 80s, right? I can imagine.
Yeah. And it was the height of his fame. He was the Elvis of television. I mean, it was, and he was so handsome and so beautiful and so kind. And we did the show. You know, we would get it on in the Miami Vice episode. And meanwhile, me and Miss Pamela were living in his house in LA when he was in Miami.
Oh, okay. Because
he'd done auditions for 11 different pilots, they call it.
Before Miami Vice?
And all of them went. And then this thing called Miami Vice came along, and the rest is history, you know. I did it a couple of times. I did it with the gas station, and then I don't know, I was a killer or a drug addict or whatever. You know? A high cheekboned role, you know, some kind. You know, but he's another guy, great singer.
Yeah.
Do anything, you know, one of those people.
Well, let's talk about your upcoming album. So it's Only Rock and Roll, coming out October 11th, 2024. It's a 1970s cover album. What inspired you to do that? You talked a little bit about it earlier, but what inspired you to do the album? Talk a little bit about those songs on them.
Well, they're all amazing.
It's like most 70s songs.
You know, I don't have to sit down and write 12 amazing songs.
Yeah.
For one thing, you know, of course I still write. I've got guitars all over the place. But the real truth of the matter is I wanted to hear mud.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear the sweet. I wanted to hear, but Mike Chapman, you know, as a producer who I did an album with, I'm Only Human. I want that melodic rock and roll music. I love Roxy Music. Brilliant band.
Right.
You know, one of Steve Jones's favorite bands was Roxy. You know, T-Rex. My next one is 20th Century Boy, you know. And then I Search and Destroy from Iggy. You know, I did a Lou Reed song because they're all so good.
Yeah. Well,
it's like why don't I go and sing some great rock songs with a guitar player, a drummer, and a bass player?
Way it should be.
A submarine.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they call them tambourines, but I always call them submarines. I don't know why. But anyway, so that's what I wanted. I wanted a simplistic, you know, guitar bass drums. And a vocalist, no double tracking. And we did it in a few days, and it's taken off, man. It's taken off. You know, Love Is the Drug, guitar, bass, drums. There's no Eno.
So the videos
I love Eno, but there's no Eno. None of that at all.
The video Love Is a Drug is on YouTube or on your website, michaeldebars.com.
Yeah. I mean, it's on Spotify. It's everywhere. Okay. And my wife just showed me the charts of Spotify. It's just zooming.
Awesome.
You know, because I haven't made a record in a while. I mean, me and Stevie Van Zandt, we've toyed with doing something. You know, I wanted to do a soul album with Stevie Van Zandt called The Self-Righteous Brothers.
Nice.
I thought that would be absolutely hilarious. And do duets with Sam and Dave, you know. But that might happen. You know, the point I'm trying to make is it has to be fun for me at this stage of the game.
Of course.
You know, I'm 76 years old. I've seen
looking amazing too, by the way. I just want to say.
Thank you. Good moisturizing, and you know, but you know, but no surgery. I would never do that.
Nice. Okay.
I would never do that.
No. I thought we said never to say never. I thought you said that earlier.
Yeah, I would never do that. But so, you know, it's been an amazing thing, and it's lovely talking to you. It's like having a good friend dinner. And I thank you so much for having a lovely conversation, because obviously one has been asked these questions a couple of times.
Right. I would imagine. So I do appreciate you coming on. I also want you to, what is the XM radio station? The
Sirius XM channel 21.
21. And the name of the station, or the name of the program?
It's called Little Steven's Underground Garage. And I am, depending on which coast you're in, if you're on the East Coast, it's from 8 to 11 a.m. And on the Pacific side of the world, it's from 9 p.m. to midnight every day, Monday through Friday. And you will hear a lot of great music. I won't talk as much as I'm talking with you right now, but I do ask questions, which then are answered by social media by various people who love this kind of music, this wonderful 60s soul music, and, you know, from the Yardbirds to, you know, to Jack White and back again. You know, it's cool.
So you're playing DJ, so it's not necessarily a talk show. You're playing DJ, playing these tunes, talking about them. Okay, very cool. Because I know a lot of XM is talk, and you know it's similar to podcasts. You have to be really into it. But I think that's great that you're playing music because everyone loves music.
The key to it, though, is to have chapters. I have a daily double take. Like, for instance, I'll do the same song, but do different artists.
Right.
And then play that against each other and why, you know, it was made, why the other person wanted to do it. I mean, there's so many different songs that people have done. Like this morning, I did Eleanor Rigby.
Oh, love that song.
From Jackie Wilson.
Oh.
And the Beatles. I mean, and you couldn't get more different than that. Because Mr. Excitement should never have done Eleanor Rigby, you know.
Right.
Which is a movie, you know. Eleanor Rigby is a beautiful, soft, gorgeous, lovely 2 minutes of romance from Paul. Then you've got Jackie Wilson, Mr. Excitement. So there's a tremendous sort of equation, a non-equation that you can, you know, get into regarding that.
Well, speaking of Beatles and covers, isn't there one by Marvin Gaye? Did he do Yesterday, or didn't he cover some?
Day Tripper.
Yeah. So that one was really good. I was just reading some article on great covers of other bands, and I'm like, I'm a big fan of Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye is my life. You know, I mean, Marvin Gaye, just the story of his life.
Right.
You know, and I'll talk about his dad in drag shooting him in the head.
Isn't that something?
But doing it on the radio is really something.
Yeah.
You and I, who obviously adore music and so on, but for the punters out there to hear this information is truly shocking. The mail that one gets about stuff that we know backwards and forwards, they do not.
But Michael, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and
sure.
your time with me, and the fans. They're going to love hearing this. So I definitely appreciate it. Is there any last words, anything else you want to talk about or plug? We kind of talked about the XM channel, the new album coming out. Anything else you wanted to talk about or say?
No, I think we've been through this pretty beautifully, and I don't have anything else to say. Other than, you know, the obvious is listen to the radio show if you like, you know, get my new record if you like. It's called It's Only Rock and Roll. And that's exactly where I'm coming from.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Michael. Have a good day. Tell your wife I said hi and thank you.
I will. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.